Humans encounter the Empire and burst into laughter. The arrival of the Magnificent, the Xanthron diplomatic cruiser emerged from the warp gate like a monument to power itself. The vessel stretched 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull composed of blackened titanium alloy that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Across its surface, holographic projections displayed the emblems of 632 conquered civilizations, each symbol pulsing with a faint crimson glow. This was the eternal supremacy, and it had never failed to inspire terror in those who witnessed its arrival. Ambassador Thraxus stood in the observation chamber, his forearms folded across his chest in the traditional pose of authority. His species, the Xanthron, had ruled the western spiral arm of the galaxy for 8 millennia. They were tall, standing nearly 3 meters in height with crystalline skin that reflected their emotional states through subtle color shifts. Right now, Thraxus's skin held the confident purple hue of anticipated victory. His aide, junior diplomat Vexal, approached with careful steps. Ambassador, we are approaching the human gateway station. All intimidation protocols are active. The holographic displays are functioning at maximum visibility. The atmospheric processors are releasing the dominance pheromones. Everything is prepared exactly as it has been for the previous 631 successful integrations. Thraxus nodded slowly. His species had perfected the art of diplomatic intimidation over thousands of years. They had studied the psychology of lesser species. They knew how to inspire awe and fear in equal measure. First contact always followed the same pattern. The impressive arrival, the overwhelming display of technological superiority, the formal declaration of the Xanthron's inevitable dominance. Then the negotiations, which were really just discussions of surrender terms. It worked every single time. Prepare my ceremonial armor, Thraxus commanded. Ensure the translation matrices are calibrated. I want every word to carry the weight of 8,000 years of unbroken supremacy. Also ready the historical documentation. Show them the time-lapse of our expansion. Show them what happens to those who resist versus those who surrender peacefully. Vexal bowed deeply. It shall be done, Ambassador. The humans are expecting us. They have cleared their primary docking bay and assembled what they call a welcoming committee. Welcoming committee. Thraxus allowed himself a small smile. How quaint. They think this is a social visit. How adorably naive these young species always were at first. The Xanthron had encountered humanity's radio transmissions only 40 years ago. By galactic standards, humans were infants. They had barely left their home system. They controlled perhaps 15 star systems at most. They had only achieved faster than light travel within the last century. They were primitives playing at civilization. The eternal supremacy docked with the human station with perfect precision. Magnetic locks engaged with deep resonant clangs that echoed through both vessels. Thraxus allowed the sound to fade completely before giving the signal. He wanted the humans to sit in that silence, to feel the weight of what was coming. The airlock opened with a hiss of pressurizing atmosphere. Thraxus stepped forward, his ceremonial armor gleaming, his forearms spread wide in the traditional gesture of inevitable conquest. Behind him, 12 honor guards marched in perfect synchronization, their weapons held at exactly the same angle, their steps creating a rhythmic thunder that should have sent any species scrambling in fear. What Thraxus saw on the other side of the airlock made his confident purple hue flicker with confusion. The humans were not cowering. They were not assembled in fearful ranks. Instead, about 20 of them were standing in casual clusters, holding small cups of steaming liquid. Several were sitting on mobile chairs. One was eating something from a wrapped package. They looked like they were at a social gathering, not a formal first contact with a galactic superpower. A human female stepped forward. She was short by Xanthron standards, perhaps 1.7 meters tall, with dark skin and hair tied back in a simple style. She wore a blue uniform with minimal decoration. She was smiling. Ambassador Thraxus, welcome to Gateway Station. I'm Commander Elena Martinez, representing the United Human Colonies. We're so excited to finally meet you in person. Can I offer you some coffee? We weren't sure if your species drinks liquids, but we have tea, water, and various juices if you prefer. Thraxus stood frozen. This was not the script. This was not how first contact worked. Where was the fear? Where was the awe? Where was the trembling realization that they stood before a power that could erase their civilization with a mere command? He drew himself up to his full height, letting his ceremonial armor catch the light. I am Ambassador Thraxis of the Xanthron Collective. We are the inheritors of 8,000 years of galactic dominance. We rule 632 civilizations across 1,400 star systems. We have brought order to chaos, structure to disorder, unity to division. Our empire spans distances that would take your primitive vessels lifetimes to cross. We have technologies that would seem like magic to your developing minds. We have witnessed the birth and death of stars. We have shaped the destiny of entire species. He paused, waiting for the effect. The humans were looking at him attentively. Several were still drinking from their cups. One was taking notes on a small electronic device. Your species has been observed. Thraxis continued, his voice dropping to a deeper, more ominous tone. You have been evaluated. You have been judged. And we have determined that you are not yet ready to stand as equals in the galactic community. Therefore, we extend to you the great honor of joining the Xanthron Collective. You will have the privilege of contributing to our civilization. You will have the protection of our military. You will have access to our knowledge, distributed as we see fit. In return, you will acknowledge Xanthron supremacy. You will integrate your governments under our administrative framework. You will contribute resources and labor to collective projects. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability. We have made this offer to 632 species before you. All of them accepted. All of them now prosper under our guidance. Thraxis fell silent, letting the weight of his words settle over the docking bay. This was the moment. This was when species realized the futility of resistance. This was when they understood their place in the cosmic order. Commander Martinez took a sip from her cup. Then she smiled more widely. "Oh my God," she said. "Carlos, are you getting this recorded? Please tell me you're recording this." A human male nearby held up a small device. "Every second, Commander." Martinez looked back at Thraxis. "Okay, I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Is this for real? Like, is this actually your diplomatic approach? The big scary ship, the armor, the whole we are superior bow-down speech? This is genuinely how you do first contact?" Thraxis felt his skin flicker between purple and orange, the color of confusion. "This is the formal protocol of the Xanthron Collective. It has been refined over 8 millennia. It has succeeded 632 times without failure." Martinez bit her lip. She appeared to be trying very hard not to laugh. Okay. I'm trying to be professional here. I really am. But you have to understand how this looks from our perspective." She turned to her team. "Help me out here. What does this remind you of?" The human male named Carlos spoke up. "Comic book villains. The really old ones from the 21st century." Another human, an older male with gray hair, added, "My kid's school play last year had better dramatic presence. Though I'll admit the ship is impressive. The skulls are a bit much, though. The skull emblems represent fallen civilizations," Thraxis said, his voice strained. "They are meant to inspire respect for the price of resistance. They inspire confusion about interior decorating choices," Martinez said. "Look, Ambassador, I'm going to be straight with you because I think there's been a serious miscommunication here. You came here expecting us to be impressed by displays of power and threats of conquest, right? That is the standard reaction of species at your developmental level," Thraxis admitted. "Okay, here's the thing." Martinez set down her cup. "Humans don't really respond well to intimidation. It's kind of a cultural thing. We have this whole history of being told we can't do something, and then doing it anyway out of spite. We've been threatened by bigger, stronger opponents throughout our entire history. Sometimes we won, sometimes we lost, but we never really learned to just give up because someone told us to. You are a young species," Thraxis insisted. "You cannot possibly stand against the collective might of the Xanthron Empire. Your technology is primitive. Your military is virtually non-existent. You control barely 15 systems. We could overwhelm you with a fraction of our forces." Martinez nodded thoughtfully. "You know what? You're absolutely right about a lot of that. We are young. We don't have a big military. We control a relatively small number of systems. But I think you're making a really dangerous assumption here." "What assumption?" Thraxis demanded. "You're assuming that because we don't have a massive military, we can't build one. You're assuming that because we seem peaceful, we don't know how to fight. You're assuming that because we're laughing at your threats, we don't understand them. Ambassador, we understand perfectly. We're laughing because this whole thing feels like a performance. A really elaborate, really expensive performance, but still a performance. The Xanthron Collective does not perform. We declare reality," Thraxis said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. Martinez picked up her cup again. "Let me tell you something about humans, Ambassador. We're really good at 2 things. First, we're excellent at adapting. Second, we have this weird tendency to become whatever we need to be. For the last 150 years, we've chosen to be explorers, scientists, builders. We've chosen peace because we could. But choice and capability are very different things. Are you threatening the Xanthron Collective? Thraxus asked, his skin shifting toward the red of anger. No, Martinez said firmly. I'm warning you. There's a difference. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to resist you. We don't want any conflict at all. But if you push this, if you actually try to conquer us, you're going to discover something about humanity that we've tried very hard to leave behind. And what is that? How good we used to be at war, Martinez said quietly. How good we might still be if we had to be. The docking bay fell silent. For the first time since arriving, Thraxus felt something unfamiliar. It was not quite fear, but it was close. It was uncertainty. I will report this conversation to my superiors, he said finally. You will be given time to reconsider your position. But know this, humans. The Xanthron Collective has never failed to integrate a species once we have made contact. You will not be the first exception, we'll see, Martinez said. She extended her hand, a human gesture of greeting. In the meantime, the coffee offer stands. No hard feelings about the whole threatening to conquer us thing. We get it. You have your protocols. Thraxus looked at her extended hand but did not take it. He turned and walked back to his ship, his guards following. As the airlock closed behind him, he heard something that made his crystalline skin shift through a dozen colors in rapid succession. The humans were laughing again. The Discovery Thraxus stood before the Supreme Council of the Xanthron Collective, 12 of the eldest and most respected members of their civilization. The council chamber was carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 300 years to shape. It refracted light in ways that made the council members appear larger, more imposing, surrounded by halos of fractured rainbow illumination. Explain to us why you returned without a surrender agreement, High Counselor Zyric said, her voice resonating through the crystal chamber. In 8,000 years of expansion, we have never had a diplomat return empty-handed from a first contact with a species of such limited development. Thraxus felt his skin color shift to the dull gray of embarrassment. The humans are unlike any species we have encountered before. They did not respond to our standard protocols. They showed no fear. In fact, they found our presentation amusing. Amusing. Another counselor leaned forward. They laughed at the might of the Xanthron Collective? Yes, High Counselor. They compared our diplomatic approach to something they called comic book villains in children's theater performances. A murmur of confusion rippled through the council. Counselor Zyrex raised one hand for silence. This is clearly a defensive mechanism, a primitive species attempting to mask their fear with bravado. We have seen this before, though admittedly not with such unusual expression. I thought so as well at first, Thraxus said, but their commander, Elena Martinez, said something that troubles me. She warned us. Not threatened, but warned. She suggested that we were making dangerous assumptions about humanity's capabilities. What capabilities could they possibly possess? A younger counselor scoffed. Our intelligence reports are clear. They have minimal military infrastructure. Their technology, while adequate for their age, is centuries behind ours. They control only 15 systems. 15, we control 1,400. The mathematics of conquest are not in their favor. Counselor Xerix nodded. I agree with the assessment. However, we should not dismiss Ambassador Thraxus's concerns entirely. What do you propose? I propose we research human history more thoroughly before proceeding, Thraxus said. Commander Martinez referenced their past. She implied that humans have experience with war that we should understand before making assumptions. Very well, Zyric said. You are authorized to access human databases. In the meantime, we will dispatch the demonstration fleet to human space. 20 vessels. Enough to remind them of the scale they face without committing to actual conquest. Sometimes a visible reminder of power is more effective than words. Thraxus wanted to argue, but he knew better than to contradict the council further. He bowed deeply and left the chamber. The Xanthron had massive computational facilities dedicated to analyzing the cultures of species they encountered. Thraxus entered Research Complex 7, where junior analyst Kree was already waiting. Kree was young for a Xanthron, barely 2 centuries old but brilliant at pattern recognition and cultural analysis. Ambassador, I've begun preliminary analysis of human historical databases, Cree said, her skin showing the bright green of intellectual excitement. They've given us complete access to their records. No restrictions. No censorship. Everything from their earliest written histories to current events. Complete access? Thraxus was surprised. Most species tried to hide their weaknesses during first contact. Why would they share everything? That's what I found curious as well, Cree said. So I started reading. Ambassador, I've been analyzing for 6 hours and I need you to see what I found. Because either these records are elaborate fabrications designed to intimidate us, or humans are the most terrifying species we've ever encountered. Thraxus felt his skin shift toward blue, the color of concern. Show me. Cree activated a holographic display. Let's start with something called World War II. This was a conflict on their home planet that occurred approximately 250 years ago. The war lasted 6 years. Estimated casualties range from 70 to 85 million individuals. Thraxus stared at the numbers. That's impossible. That would require killing rates far exceeding any military technology available to a pre-spaceflight civilization. That's what I thought, Cree said. But the records are consistent across multiple independent sources. They developed something called industrial warfare. They converted their entire manufacturing base into weapons production. They had factories producing thousands of aircraft, shipyards building warships in weeks instead of months. They mobilized entire populations for war effort. The display shifted, showing images of vast factories, assembly lines, millions of uniformed humans. But here's what truly concerns me, Cree continued. This war ended with the deployment of atomic weapons. The humans split atoms to create explosions powerful enough to destroy entire cities. They used 2 such weapons on their own species, killing over 200,000 people instantly. Thraxus felt himself shift through several colors rapidly. They bombed themselves? Their own kind? Yes, and then they built more. Thousands more. Bigger ones. They developed something called mutually assured destruction. The concept was that if one nation attacked another with nuclear weapons, the response would be total annihilation of both sides. They lived under this threat for decades. They built enough weapons to destroy their entire planet multiple times over, and they were still confined to one world. They had nowhere to escape to. Why didn't they destroy themselves? That's the question I've been trying to answer, Cree said. As far as I can determine, they came very close several times. There are documented incidents where accidental missile launches were barely prevented. Human error almost ended their civilization on multiple occasions. But somehow they survived. They negotiated. They disarmed partially. They learned to manage their destructive capabilities. The display changed again, showing a timeline of human conflicts, wars, battles, revolutions, stretching back thousands of years. Ambassador, humans have been at war almost constantly throughout their recorded history. They fought with stones, then bronze, then iron, then steel. They developed gunpowder, chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. Each generation found new and more efficient ways to kill each other. And they documented everything. They studied their wars. They wrote books analyzing battles from thousands of years ago. They created entire academic fields dedicated to understanding conflict. Thraxus sat down heavily. How did we not know this? Why didn't our initial surveys reveal this? Because for the last 150 years they've been at peace, Cree said. Almost no major conflicts. Their military spending decreased dramatically. They demilitarized most of their infrastructure. To a casual observer, they looked like a peaceful species that evolved beyond war. But if you look deeper into their culture, you see that war never really left. They make entertainment about it. Movies, games, books, all centered on conflict and combat. They teach military history in schools. They have museums dedicated to weapons and battles. They remember everything. Show me their current military capabilities, Thraxus said. Cree pulled up new data. This is where it gets interesting. Their military is tiny compared to their total population and industrial capacity. They maintain approximately 0.2% of their population in active military service. Their military budget is less than 1% of their total economic output. By our standards, they're virtually demilitarized, so they are weak. No, Cree said firmly. They're choosing not to be strong. There's a critical difference. Look at their industrial capacity. She displayed economic data. They have manufacturing facilities on every one of their 15 worlds. Shipyards that currently build civilian vessels, factories producing consumer goods, mining operations extracting resources. If they wanted to convert this infrastructure to military production, based on their historical precedent during World War II, they could increase their military output by a factor of 50 to 100 within months. That's absurd. No species can mobilize that quickly. Humans did it before. Cree showed historical data. In World War II, their nation called the United States converted from a peacetime economy to total war production in under 2 years. They went from building civilian automobiles to building thousands of tanks and aircraft. One of their shipyards was launching a new warship every week. One shipyard, 1 week, one warship. And that was with technology from 2.5 centuries ago. Thraxus stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the data. What else? Their cultural psychology is fascinating and concerning, Cree said. I've been analyzing their literature, philosophy, and political structures. Humans have this concept they call underdog mentality. They culturally admire those who fight against superior odds. Throughout their history, they celebrate stories of small forces defeating larger ones through cleverness, determination, and what they call grit. They don't see superior numbers or technology as insurmountable. They see them as challenges to overcome. The display showed images from human entertainment, fictional stories of rebellions, of individuals fighting empires, of impossible victories against overwhelming odds. They tell themselves these stories constantly, Cree continued. It's embedded in their mythology, their religion, their entertainment. The idea that being threatened makes you fight harder, not surrender faster. This is the opposite of how most species respond to superior force. What about their response to our demonstration fleet? Thraxus asked. It should have arrived in human space by now. Cree pulled up real-time intelligence. It arrived 4 hours ago. 20 Xanthron warships in orbit around their capital world. The fleet commander, Admiral Vorath, issued the standard ultimatum. Surrender within 1 planetary rotation or face consequences. And their response? They're ignoring it. Ignoring it? Cree displayed human news broadcasts. Look, their media is covering the fleet's arrival, but not with panic. They're treating it like a curiosity. One of their entertainment programs made jokes about it. Several of their news analysts are discussing our ship designs from an engineering perspective, pointing out inefficiencies. One human physicist published a paper suggesting improvements to our propulsion systems based on observations of our fleet. They're critiquing our technology? Thraxus felt his color shift to orange with confusion. Yes, and there's more. The human government issued an official statement. Cree played the recording. A human male in formal attire spoke calmly. We acknowledge the presence of Xanthron vessels in our space. We appreciate their interest in humanity. However, we must respectfully decline their offer of integration into their collective. We value our independence and see no benefit to surrendering our sovereignty. We hope the Xanthron collective will respect this decision and engage with us as equals rather than subjects. We remain open to diplomatic dialogue and cultural exchange. That's it? Thraxus asked. No fear, no panic? No military mobilization? Actually, there is some mobilization, Cree said, but it's subtle. They've quietly activated what they call reserve fleets, civilian vessels that can be rapidly converted to military use. They're moving ships into position. They're updating defense networks, but they're doing it calmly, methodically, without public alarm. It's like they've done this before, have they? Not with external species, but with each other? Many times. Humans have extensive experience with military deterrence, Cold Wars, and strategic positioning. They know how to prepare for conflict while maintaining a peaceful facade. Thraxus felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. What is your assessment, Analyst Cree? Professionally, what do you believe will happen if we proceed with integration by force? Cree was silent for a long moment. Her skin shifted through several colors before settling on dark blue, the color of deep concern. Ambassador, I believe the humans are trying to warn us away for our own benefit. I believe they genuinely don't want conflict. But I also believe that if we attack them, we're going to discover that we've awakened something that hasn't been active for a century and a half. Something that humans themselves might be afraid of. You think they could defeat us? I think the question isn't whether they could defeat us, Cree said quietly. The question is how quickly they could do it, and how much damage they would do in the process. Based on their history, humans are frighteningly effective at scaling up warfare. They're frighteningly good at adapting to threats. And most concerning of all, they're frighteningly willing to accept casualties that would break other species. Thraxis thought of Commander Martinez's warning. We don't want to fight you, but if you push this, you're going to discover something about humanity that we've tried very hard to leave behind. I need to contact the Supreme Council immediately, Thraxis said. They need to see this data before Admiral Vorath does something irreversible. He was too late. Before he could establish communication, alarms began sounding throughout the research facility. Emergency broadcasts flooded every channel. Admiral Vorath, growing impatient with the human response, had authorized a demonstration of force. He had ordered the bombardment of an uninhabited human moon. The Xanthron plasma cannons had destroyed the mining facilities there, killing 317 human workers and rendering the installation useless. Thraxis watched the reports with growing horror. His skin went completely white, the color of mortal terror. He's done it, Kree whispered. He's given them a reason to fight. Within minutes, the human response began, and it was nothing like what the Xanthron Collective had ever seen before. The understanding. The emergency session of the Supreme Council convened within the hour. Every counselor was present, their crystalline forms reflecting the harsh lighting of the crisis chamber. The holographic displays showed real-time data from human space, and what those displays showed made even the eldest counselors shift colors in distress. Explain this, High Counselor Xyrix demanded, pointing at the cascading streams of information. Explain how the humans have produced 47 new warships in 3 days. 3 days. This is impossible. Ambassador Thraxis stood before them, his skin a mottled combination of colors expressing fear, vindication, and resignation. It's not impossible. It's exactly what their history told us they could do. We just didn't believe it. The displays showed human shipyards across all 15 systems operating at full capacity. Civilian vessels were being rapidly retrofitted. Massive cargo haulers were being transformed into weapons platforms. Passenger liners were being converted into troop carriers. But more concerning were the new constructions. Sleek warships rolling out of facilities that had produced nothing but civilian craft for over a century. Their manufacturing capacity is overwhelming our analysts, Counselor Breck said. Every facility we've identified as civilian has revealed military conversion capability. Every world has hidden production capacity. It's as if their entire economy was designed with the possibility of warfare in mind, even though they've been at peace for generations. Because it was, Thraxis said. Analyst Kree and I have reviewed their historical records. When they unified their species and ended their internal conflicts, they didn't dismantle their capacity for war. They repurposed it. Their cargo ships use engines originally designed for military vessels. Their manufacturing techniques were developed for mass-producing weapons. Their logistics networks can supply armies or civilians with equal efficiency. They built a civilization on top of a war machine, and they never forgot how the machine worked. Admiral Vorath's image appeared in the display. He looked shaken, his own skin showing colors of confusion and concern. High Council, I must report that the human response to our demonstration exceeds all projections. They have not attempted negotiation. They have not issued demands or ultimatums. They simply began destroying our forward reconnaissance vessels. We have lost 17 ships in the last 6 hours. 17 ships? Xyrix repeated. How? Our intelligence indicated they had minimal military capability. They converted civilian vessels to military use. Vorath said. A human cargo hauler modified with weapons destroyed 3 of our scouts before we even identified it as a threat. They're using tactics we've never encountered. They don't fight honorably. They don't announce their attacks. They ambush from behind debris fields. They hide among civilian traffic and strike without warning. They use deception constantly. We cannot trust any vessel we encounter. Counselor Xyrix turned to Thraxis. You studied their history. Did you see evidence of such tactics? Thraxis activated his own display, showing records from human conflicts. During what they call World War II, human forces regularly used camouflage, deception, and misdirection. They built fake military installations to draw enemy fire away from real ones. They transmitted false radio messages to confuse opponents. They disguised warships as civilian vessels. One of their most successful operations involved an elaborate deception that convinced their enemies an invasion would occur in one location when the actual target was elsewhere. Humans don't just fight with weapons. They fight with information, psychology, and misdirection. That's dishonorable, Counselor Breck protested. War should be conducted with integrity. Humans don't share that perspective, Thraxis said. They have a saying, all is fair in love and war. They believe that survival justifies any tactic. To them, fighting dishonorably is just fighting smart. The displays updated with new information. The human fleet was growing exponentially. 123 warships now operational, and the rate of production was accelerating, not slowing. Where are they getting the resources? Xyrix demanded. The materials alone should limit their production. Kree's voice came through the communication system. She was still at the research facility, analyzing data in real time. High Council, they're using automated mining in their asteroid belts. They have facilities we didn't identify because they're run by artificial intelligence with minimal biological oversight. Those facilities have been extracting and refining materials continuously for decades. They've been stockpiling resources without even realizing they were doing it for military purposes. Now they're converting those stockpiles into warships. Admiral Vorath spoke again. High Council, I request permission to withdraw to defensive positions. The humans are advancing into our forward territories. They're not just defending, they're attacking, and their forces are coordinating in ways that suggest extensive military training, despite their claims of being peaceful. Denied, Xyrix said firmly. We cannot show weakness. The Xanthron Collective does not retreat from species inferior to us. With respect, High Counselor, Vorath said, his voice strained. I'm not certain they are inferior to us, at least not in warfare. Thraxis cleared his throat. High Council, I have received a communication from Commander Elena Martinez. She requests to speak with us directly. Xyrix's skin flashed red briefly. She requests? After attacking our forces, she claims she has a proposal that could end hostilities. Thraxis said, I recommend we hear what she has to say. After a moment of tense silence, Xyrix nodded. Very well. Establish the communication link. Commander Martinez appeared in the holographic display. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, but her expression was calm and professional. She was wearing a military uniform now, not the casual clothes from their first meeting. High Counselor Xyrix, members of the Supreme Council, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I wish the circumstances were better. You have attacked Xanthron vessels, Xyrix said coldly. You have killed Xanthron personnel, and you dare request communication? Your Admiral Vorath killed 317 of our people. Martinez replied, her voice hardening. He destroyed civilian facilities without warning. If we're tallying who started this, the responsibility lies with the Xanthron Collective. But I'm not here to argue about blame. I'm here to stop this before it gets worse. Worse? Counselor Breck scoffed. You control 15 systems. We control 1,400. You cannot threaten us. Martinez's expression didn't change. Counselor, in the 3 days since your admiral attacked our people, we've built a fleet larger than anything we've had in a century and a half. We've converted 30% of our civilian infrastructure to military production, and we're not stopping. Our economic models project that within 30 days, we'll have produced more warships than your entire collective possesses. Within 60 days, we'll have twice as many. Our manufacturing capacity exceeds yours by a significant margin. We just never bothered to use it for military purposes until now. Impossible, Breck said, but his skin color showed uncertainty. It's very possible, Martinez said. See, here's what you don't understand about humans. When we're at peace, we build things. We explore, we create. We're good at it, but when we're threatened, we become something else. Something we've tried very hard not to be for the last 150 years. We become what we were when we fought ourselves for 10,000 years. We become terrifyingly efficient at destruction. She pulled up her own holographic display. These are casualty projections if this war continues. Xanthron losses will exceed 1 million within 6 months. 3 million within a year. Your military infrastructure will be crippled within 8 months. Your economy will collapse within 18 months as trade routes become unsafe, and conquered species see your weakness and rebel. The Xanthron Collective as you know it will cease to exist within 2 years. You cannot guarantee such outcomes, Xyrix said, though her skin showed the pale blue of concern. You're right, I can't guarantee them, Martinez admitted. Maybe we're overestimating our capabilities. Maybe we've been at peace too long and forgotten how to fight effectively. Maybe you'll adapt to our tactics faster than we expect. But are you willing to bet your civilization on it? Because that's what you're doing. You're betting that a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare has somehow lost that knowledge in just a century and a half of peace. The council chamber was silent. Thraxus watched the counselors, seeing their skin colors shifting through patterns of fear, anger, and confusion. "What are you proposing?" Xyrix finally asked. "A ceasefire, immediate and unconditional," Martinez said, "followed by peace negotiations, not your standard integration protocols. Actual negotiations between equals. The Xanthron Collective does not negotiate with inferior species," Xyrix said, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. "Then you don't negotiate with us," Martinez said simply. "And this war continues. Your Admiral Vorath has already lost 29 ships. That number will double by tomorrow, triple by next week. Your forces are confused because we don't fight the way you expect. We don't follow your rules. We don't respect your protocols. We fight to win by any means necessary. That's what 10,000 years of human warfare taught us. Victory matters. Honor doesn't," she leaned forward. "But here's the thing, High Counselor. We don't want victory. We don't want your territory. We don't want to conquer you. We want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. We want to explore, build, create, and discover. We want to do anything except fight. But you're not giving us that option. What guarantees can you offer that you won't attack us?" Counselor Breck asked. "The same guarantees you offered the 632 species you conquered," Martinez said. "None. You'll have to trust us, just like you expected them to trust you." "Why should we trust a species that fights dishonorably?" Breck demanded. "Because a species that fights dishonorably is also a species that doesn't want to fight at all," Martinez said. "Think about it. If we loved warfare, if we glorified battle, we'd fight like you do, formally, honorably, with ritual and ceremony. But we hate war. We hate it so much that when we have to fight, we fight as efficiently and effectively as possible to end it as quickly as we can. We don't want long, drawn-out conflicts. We want to win fast and go back to peace. That's why we fight dirty. Not because we're dishonorable, but because we're desperate to make the fighting stop." Thraxus stepped forward. "High Council, I believe we should accept Commander Martinez's proposal. We underestimated humanity. We made assumptions based on their apparent weakness without understanding that their weakness was a choice, not a limitation. We awakened something they had deliberately put to sleep. If we continue this path, we risk the destruction of everything we've built over 8 millennia." Xyrix looked at him, then at the other counselors. The display showed human fleet positions expanding, more ships being produced, Xanthron losses mounting. Finally she spoke. "Commander Martinez, we will agree to a ceasefire. But we have conditions," Martinez nodded. "I'm listening. First, you will halt military production immediately. Second, you will withdraw your forces from Xanthron space. Third, you will acknowledge the Xanthron Collective's sovereignty over our current territories, agreed on all counts," Martinez said. "In exchange, you will acknowledge human sovereignty over our territories, including the moon your admiral destroyed. You will provide reparations for the lives lost and damages caused, and you will never ever attempt to integrate humanity into your collective again. We are and will remain independent." The council conferred briefly in their own language. Then Xyrix spoke. "These terms are acceptable. But we have a question. Why did you warn us before the fighting started? Why did you try to prevent this conflict?" "Because we knew how it would end," Martinez said quietly. "We've been on both sides of wars like this. We've been the underestimated opponent that surprised everyone. We've also been the powerful force that underestimated others. We've learned that wars based on misunderstanding and assumption are the worst kind. They're wasteful. They're tragic. And they're avoidable. We tried to help you avoid this mistake." "We really did try. You said something at our first meeting," Thraxus said. "You said we would discover how good humans used to be at war, and that it terrified you. I didn't understand then. I do now. You're not afraid of us. You're afraid of yourselves." Martinez smiled sadly. "Yes. For 150 years we've built a civilization based on cooperation, exploration, and creation. We've tried to be better than what we were. And in 3 days we converted back to a war economy so easily it was frightening. We remembered everything so quickly. Like we never really stopped being warriors. We just pretended for a while. The ceasefire was formalized within hours. Both sides withdrew their forces. Human military production slowed, then stopped. The warships that had been built were mothballed or converted back to civilian use. The crisis passed, but the galaxy had changed. 6 months later, Ambassador Thraxis stood in the newly established Galactic Dialogue Center, a space station built cooperatively by 12 species, including both Xanthron and humans. He watched as Commander Martinez approached, now wearing civilian clothes again, carrying her ever-present cup of coffee. "Ambassador, good to see you," she said with a genuine smile. "How are you adjusting to the new diplomatic protocols?" "Better than expected," Thraxis admitted, "though I must confess the concept of negotiating with species as equals is still strange to my people. 8,000 years of habit are difficult to break." "I imagine so," Martinez said. "For what it's worth, I think the Xanthron have adapted remarkably well. Your proposal for the joint scientific expedition to the galactic core was brilliant. Combining resources from multiple species for pure research benefits everyone. It was inspired by human practices," Thraxis said. "Your species has taught us much about cooperation over domination, though I suspect you still maintain the capacity to return to military production if necessary." "Oh, absolutely," Martinez said without hesitation. "We disassembled the warships, but we kept the manufacturing templates. We trained our people, but we also maintained the training programs. We're peaceful, Ambassador, but we're not naive. We learned a long time ago that the best way to avoid war is to be capable of winning it while choosing not to fight it." "A wise philosophy," Thraxis said. "Though terrifying when one considers the implications," Martinez laughed. "Welcome to the human experience. We've been dealing with that particular terror for centuries." They stood together, looking out at the stars visible through the station's massive observation windows. Representatives from a dozen species moved around them, talking, negotiating, cooperating. "You know what the strangest part of all this is?" Martinez said. "We actually like you. The Xanthron, I mean. Once we got past the whole attempted conquest thing, we found your species fascinating. Your crystalline biology, your color-based emotional communication, your artistic traditions. Humanity loves learning about other cultures. It's one of our favorite things. And we are learning to appreciate human resilience and adaptability," Thraxis said. "Though I hope we never see your military capabilities again." Martinez raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To peaceful cooperation and military capabilities we never have to use." Thraxis touched his own drinking vessel to hers. "To understanding and the wisdom to avoid unnecessary conflicts." As they stood there, the communication system activated. A new species had been detected entering known space. They were broadcasting on all frequencies, declaring themselves the Kralgon Empire, conquerors of 40 systems, demanding immediate surrender from all species they encountered. Martinez and Thraxis looked at each other. Then simultaneously they both started laughing. "Oh, not again," Martinez said, shaking her head. "Do you want to handle this, or should I?" "Perhaps we should do it together," Thraxis suggested. "I believe I've learned some of your diplomatic techniques, starting with explaining that intimidation displays are not as effective as they might think." "Perfect," Martinez said. "Let's go save some overconfident empire from making a terrible mistake." They walked toward the diplomatic chambers together, former enemies now partners, both understanding that the greatest strength lay not in the ability to conquer, but in the wisdom to choose peace while maintaining the capacity for war. Behind them, the stars shone endlessly, and in that vast cosmos, a new understanding spread slowly but surely. Not all peaceful species were weak. Some had simply learned that true power meant controlling yourself rather than others. And humanity, with its strange laughter and terrible history, had become the galaxy's most unexpected teacher. The end.